Hi everyone, it's Dr. Ramani and welcome back to this channel on all things narcissism related. It's my hope that this content helps you understand difficult, toxic, and narcissistic relationships and gives you some solace as you deal with these difficult patterns and helps you, helps your family members, helps your friends. Today we're going to take on a very interesting topic, which is this idea of how toxic positivity can make things really difficult for survivors of narcissistic abuse. And I'll make more clear on what I mean by that in a minute. But welcome to this channel if you're new, and no matter what, please join us, subscribe to this channel, and hit that bell if you want notifications when we put out new content. So let's talk a little bit about this idea of toxic positivity and how it really makes life difficult for people going through narcissistic abuse. Okay, so you've heard this kinds of stuff, right? If you forgive, it will set you free. Don't block your love and light. See the good in everyone. Oh, you've got to give second chances because everyone, just everyone deserves them. We are in a very interesting era in mental health. There is a movement in positive psychology, and the research on positive psychology is actually quite compelling. Positive psychology in broad strokes focuses on things like resilience, strengths building, and stepping back and thinking about things outside of a dysfunction framework and actually talking about function. In the right hands, it's a healthy lens and it's good. The problem is a lot of this positivity stuff in the wrong hands, this positivity discourse, can actually become really toxic. So let's just start in this year. In this disaster wrapped in a calamity that's called 2020, especially back in March, there was all kinds of people talking nonsense about finding your bliss in quarantine and the simple joys of being with family. And that your misery, the only reason you're miserable during quarantine is because you can't think positively. Now, there is such a danger in this kind of thinking and proselytizing. The people who are struggling and are still struggling are struggling for very real reasons. Illness, loss of job, loss of money, being stuck in a house with a toxic family member or members, having to homeschool kids while working, not being able to get to or be able to help family, making existing mental health crises work, being overwhelmed with anxiety. Telling people to think differently, or that somehow they were the own source of their misery because they were thinking wrongly about it all, is disrespectful and unkind. Now, the toxic positivity people are unwilling to hear anything that doesn't suit their unicorns and rainbows narrative. They may write off people who are going through difficult experiences as having bad energy or bringing toxic vibes, or they may not even want to hear about their struggles because, oh, I can't hear this kind of negativity, it messes me up. Okay. There's a very emotionally stunted quality to all of this, as though these are adults who don't want to hear about the reality and the ugly underbelly of adult life. These are people who would rather hold on to metaphysical incantations and intentions and magic. And the best way to keep up this childlike fantasy, I'll tell you one way, just keep all that nasty talk outside the door. I actually remember very well once sitting with a group of friends, and in that conversation we were talking about a woman all of us knew who was managing a particularly horrific malignant narcissist in a divorce. It was a very painful story to think about and hear about. And the toxic positivity person in our group said, "Please don't talk about these negative things. It hurts my heart. I don't want to think that the world is like this." I was like, seriously? I told everyone I had to go to the restroom. I just kept walking out to the parking lot. I am not enabling this kind of nonsense. If people want to keep up their childlike, magical positivity fantasies about life and love, then you do you. But I draw the line at the damage this kind of toxic positivity nonsense does to people who are experiencing real narcissistic abuse. Remember that narcissists retain their power and dominance in the world pretty much largely because they're enabled to do so. Nobody stops them. And you want to know one key group of enablers they've got? Yep. It's these toxic positivity folks. First of all, the toxic positivity people are very suggestible. They're very naive, and they fall for the charisma and the charm. In fact, toxic positivity people are exactly the types of people who are vulnerable to cults or cult-like structures for the same reason, because they actually want to believe some magical universe thing is going to happen. So in that way, toxic positivity people often become really great flying monkeys because they want to believe the best story in the room. And who tells the best story in the room? The narcissist. So if you turn around and tell them, hey, I think that person's being manipulative, that doesn't fit in with the unicorns and rainbows positivity world, and they will silence you, and they will often gaslight you or attempt to shame you. Now, the main way that the toxic positivity folks do their damage is often by stonewalling the experience of people enduring any form of narcissistic abuse. They just will say, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to talk about it. And they will often engage in gaslighting, saying things like, oh, it can't be that bad, or everyone has a light inside of them. You just have to find their light. Or you're a Scorpio and he's a Taurus, so it has to work out because that's such a star-loving lover pair. Or you just aren't saying your intentions loud enough. Honey, there ain't no megaphone big enough out there to say your intentions loud enough to turn a damn narcissist around. I can tell you that right now. So, boy, oh boy, do the toxic positivity people love forgiveness. They love it. They seem to think forgiveness is some kind of fairy dust that you can just sprinkle on a situation and just conveniently make it all go away so they can keep their narrative going. Just forgive. Forgiving is divine. Forgiving is holy. These hyper-positive types don't recognize that forgiveness in a narcissist's hand is merely permission for the narcissist to keep doing what they are doing, rather than a wake-up call to change it. And when it comes to change, those positivity types love to prattle on about untapped potential. Listen, I'm a humanist. I love the potential that exists in so many people. But when you start talking and engaging with a narcissist about their untapped potential, they're going to go on an entitled and victimized rant about, yeah, I have so much potential, baby, and the world needs to give me what I deserve because of all my potential. So just make it easier because I have so much potential. Cultivate my potential. The greatest risk is that these toxic positivity folks truly believe that narcissists can change. And what's worse is that they believe it's your love that's going to be what changes them. I don't want to tell you how many people I have worked with who went back into narcissistic relationships after being told by a positive group of friends that they just need to love their narcissist more and love them harder. And just maybe they weren't loving their narcissist with an open enough heart. It makes my blood boil when I hear this nonsense. Because many times after hearing this stuff, a person would go back into the relationship for several years of abuse after that, thinking their love would fix it all. The toxic positivity folks also come at life from a real position of self-righteousness. They're above it all. They're too good to judge or use labels. I will say I am regularly criticized on this basis, that I somehow demean people by labeling them or calling them out as narcissists or using the word narcissism. Okay, bring it. I can live with that criticism because the moment The moment someone gaslights and manipulates and invalidates another person, oh, trust me, I can think of some harsher labels than narcissist, but I won't say them here. But this self-righteous stance of, well, I think everyone is their own unique, beautiful creature with a beautiful story, means that they miss the boat on seeing dangerous, toxic patterns. And then if you share your story of experiencing narcissistic abuse with them, if you share that with them, instead of getting empathy, you are more likely to be met with them sort of lifting their noses and saying, I don't really like to hear words like narcissism, because that feels too dismissive to use that word. And they just don't like the negative energy of it all. A favorite saying of the positivity police is to trust the universe. I've never really met the universe, so I don't know how readily I'm willing to trust it. Now, as someone who was raised on a steady diet of karma and fate, maybe I get it to a little point. Bottom line is, in terms of trusting the universe, one thing I do know is that we're all going to die. So I suppose that we can trust the universe on that one absolute front. But this idea that some sort of magical solution, magical connection, metaphysical moment is going to come flying down from the northwest side of heaven only fosters the helplessness and hopelessness that many people enduring narcissistic abuse have to live with. You as a group who've been through narcissistic abuse, a lot of you keep trusting the universe. And then you go home and you get gaslighted again, and you get invalidated again, and you get minimized again, and you keep waiting and waiting for the damned universe to deliver. I have watched people stay 30, 40, 50 years in narcissistic relationships to wait lifetimes for narcissistic parents or siblings to come around. And what do you know? They just keep trusting the universe. After getting information about narcissism and narcissistic abuse, these people who once trusted the universe, they start to recognize that apparently no one gave the universe the manual about narcissistic relationships. And that then when a person understands, has the knowledge about narcissistic relationships, whether or not you stay or leave in a relationship, at least you can think differently about it. Many times this mentality of the universe will step in, or the universe is showing you a sign type of magical thinking, it takes the form of a fantasy. The narcissist will finally see that I have fallen ill and the universe has stepped in and they'll take care of me. Or that maybe some tragedy will happen, an accident will happen. And after I have that accident, they'll see how much they love me. This is a sign from the universe. Let me tell you what's going to happen if you have that accident or you get sick. They're going to be far, far more likely to crumble under the stress of your illness or the inconvenience of you getting sick. And things will get worse in your relationship, rather than this idea that the universe has lobbed you some kind of miracle. But this obsessive idea, this thinking that the universe will somehow positively light your path, somehow those lights from the universe don't quite light the path of people who are trying to walk out of narcissistic abuse. It's on you to take responsibility, to take this into your hands, to learn what you need to learn, and to make a decision that safeguards your mental health and one that you can live with realistically. And alas, so many of these positivity mavens do like to call themselves healers. Some of these people may operate as coaches or yogis or yoginis or crystal practitioners or woke astrologers or whatever they are. Many people who do this work are doing great work, but the ones who will just hold on and keep shouting the gospel of positivity over and again, and if you don't buy into their positivity doctrine, then you're the one who will be called out as toxic. And then, as the toxic cherry on top, they will often be blaming you because this other person is narcissistic. It's your fault for not loving them enough or doing it right, rather than being willing to see the poison of the situation you are in, or the damage wrought by the narcissist in your life. This kind of positive talk, the kind of positive talk you often hear from famous motivational speakers who will blame the people in the difficult relationship rather than teach them about narcissism, is dangerous for people who are in the throes of narcissistic abuse and are too confused to easily find the path out. You cannot downward dog away narcissistic abuse. You cannot caress a rose quartz crystal away narcissistic abuse. You cannot intention it away. You cannot sage and smudge it away. You have to face it head on. You have to learn about it. Yes, it is uncomfortable and it can feel judgmental and icky to talk about it and recognize it. And after years of being gaslighted, and now you're gaslighting yourself, you may feel that you don't have it right. You never had it right. It's all your fault. Something you're doing is wrong. The damage wrought by toxic relationships is real, and you have the right to speak your truth without it being edited to fit a more positive and sunshiny narrative. Anytime someone is unable to hear your take on a situation without altering it to fit what feels better to them, it doesn't matter if they're positive or not. It is disrespectful. And what's unfortunate is that some of this positive stuff, these positivity zealots can put out there, some of it's not a bad thing. Yoga, in fact, can be a great space in which to practice breathing and centeredness and strength. Meditation, mindfulness, all of these things are essential tools and can be essential tools in helping you heal. Heal your body, heal your mind, and heal your soul. But healing has to first start with someone being willing to bear witness to your truth, no matter how uncomfortable your truth is. So it's okay to channel a little bit of realistic negativity. And when the positivity people come your way and try to shut you down, you can respectfully step back and hold on tightly to your reality. Like I said, we're living in a time that has an almost cult-like feel around this positivity. You've really, really got to make sure that you don't let that be one more impediment in your journey. So many of the positivity folks are big fans of childlike hope. You just got to hope. If you put your hope in the universe, it'll come true. Intentions and hopes and magic and all of that, while it's so appealing, and it's such a childlike way that it's that simple. I have worked with survivors of narcissistic abuse who have wished on 1,000 shooting stars, who have dropped wishes in 1,000 wishing wells, who have spent money on all kinds of psychics and mediums and everything, trying to look into a future and get answers. Ultimately, what people who are going through narcissistic abuse need is accurate, clear information. This isn't positivity stuff. No, they're not going to change, and it stinks. It stinks if this is your mom or your dad or your husband or your wife or your sibling or your friend. It feels terrible. But the idea that you can positively, magically think this away is a really, really tricky space. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one. And listen, I know some of you might say, oh, come on, don't be so negative. Maybe if you've seen the stories I've seen, that's the way I think about it. But I, again, am tired of watching so many people lose so much of their potential in their lives to people who keep selling them down the river and people who keep gaslighting them and denying their reality. It's just not okay. Thanks for tuning in. As always, welcome to this channel. Subscribe, join us, and welcome.